So good afternoon, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today to share some thoughts about how we've been incorporating CI into global product strategy. So I'll try to walk you through on, I would say, a bit of our journey into neurology, which is something new to Servier. But first of all, so in terms of agenda, the idea is to, well, explain a little bit why I'm here also today in terms of my title and specifically why I'm doing CI. A bit of context also of Servier to set the scene with regard to how we use CI into neurology, and present you with few use cases and some key takeaways. So first of all, so I've more than 10 years of experience in pharma. I've been working in consulting previously, and I had different roles at Servier, always working either on topics related to strategy or to insights. So in R&D, in commercial role, and lastly, more on, I would say, corporate level. So making the link with the presentation earlier of Paul, I think that there are many things that was related to the things I was doing previously. Really to provide a strategic CI to our C-level people, to be sure that we have external perspective also when we define a strategy. And currently, it's been 2 years now, I'm working as the Global Business Officer in Neurology. And I think that over those 10 years, I developed different skills also that are quite useful to what I'm doing today. Analytical skills, strategic thinking, being also quite insight-driven. And something important for me is also the cross-functional leadership, which is for me critical when we are talking about strategic topic, when we need to have also competitive intelligence data. So, as I said, currently part of my role is to support Servier's strategic entry into neurology. And CI really matters to me because I think that in my role currently, I'm able to provide both CI perspective and knowledge, as well as a consulting background to support also different key decisions that we are currently facing to enter the field of neurology. And the idea is to share, well, part of that journey today and how we are currently building also this new pillar. But first of all, just a little bit of context also about Servier, because I don't think that's a company well known also everywhere. So Servier is company that's been founded for more than 70 years. We are a privately owned company and independent, meaning that it's a company where we have the time and the freedom to operate because we are not driven by shareholders. And that's changed a lot also the decisions that are taken in a way that we are, I would say, we own the company is owned by itself, and we are not dictated by shareholders. And we have the long-term vision of everything that we do. So we are the number 2 of French pharma companies. We operate also globally. And initially, Servier is more a leader in the field of cardiology, mostly also hypertension. And recently, we also entered the field of oncology, which has been also boosting the growth of the company over the past few years. So with the ability to have a double-digit growth and actually expansion that is, as I say, funded mostly on the cardio business. And currently, the oncology is like making a quarter of the sales, something also increasing in terms of share of sales. And we have the ambition to enter the field of neurology, which is currently nowhere actually in terms of sales. That's why I put it in the left-hand side of these slides. Because neurology currently is mostly R&D driven in terms of a project that we have. But we have also a strong ambition also to have external opportunities. And currently, the focus that we're having is dedicated to 6 different disease priorities, as well as different scientific areas where we leverage, I would say, the internal knowledge to expand ourselves in this field. So, making the transition when you are thinking about entering a new field, well, if you make it simple, there are a few questions we can ask. The first is where to play, and then how we will enter this space, and also how we can succeed in this space. So the idea will be to share one use case about the where to play first, and discuss a little bit about how CI has been using all along the process. So The first thing we did when we decided to move into neurology was to clearly define the 6 clusters I showed you earlier in terms of disease area. And we had to define an internal tool that is called disease area strategy by investigating the whole landscape of diseases. So for that, the first step was to have the right people around the table, to have the right level of expertise, to discuss external data, to take decisions. So basically, people cross-functionally working in global product strategy, working in market access in the US, because US is also a huge part of the business, business development, also people from R&D. Then we worked extensively together at identifying what could be, good spot for us to play in, good markets. And we identified more than 400 indications. And the idea was to assess them broadly on some different key parameters, with the idea to quickly exclude some of them with stronger no-go criteria. And for that, we needed to have, I would say, accurate data to perform this kind of analysis. Then the idea was to clusterize them all together to identify how we can, I would say, define specific clusters and franchise, and at the end, to prioritize all of them by scoring it. So why I'm talking about this? Because actually, CI was used all along the process to inform the different key parameters we were assessing in terms of go, no-go assessments. So first of all, we were, as I said, defining no-go criteria. So just put some example here. So basically, how other companies are investing in those fields. So what are the pipelines they have in this specific indication? What are the number of patients also we could reach in those countries? So is there is too low number of patients? Identify also, either high risk also to invest in this area because success rates are really low. So for that, we capture through all different databases we had access to specific information about this specific indication. Then with the set of indication we had, went a step further to proceed more on stronger assessments of different key parameters. So again, need for external data, basically understanding what is the target population we can have in those markets. What is the care management? So how are patients handled in this area, and that's something that's achievable also for us. What is the level of unmet needs, and different parameters. I won't go into all of them, just to give you some highlights of the type of thing we were looking at. And at the end, we were working on different ponderation, and something important really is to gather the knowledge of our experts internally, also challenging what we had internally with external data. And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, to have a cross-functional team with the right level of expertise was clearly critical to make sure that we were selecting the right indication. Then when we had defined where we wanted to play, the question that came after is how we can enter this field and how we can succeed. So I'm going to one specific example. I think that CI is currently used at different level. The idea of all the different questions we are addressing through CI is to clearly understand the markets and also how competitors also operate in this field. So we have different types of projects. For instance, it's to help and inform due diligence when we are making external opportunity assessments, so to be sure that we know well our competitors, what they are doing, what could be also all information we can gather also for the specific assets we would like to acquire. Then it's about also monitoring the whole competitive environment. So what, again, our competitors are doing, and are there some of them moving into one of the specific indication we have selected. And a lot of things that we do also is to benchmark. So benchmarking peers and competitors to understand how they entered those fields, understand the level of investments, for example, understand the commercial team that's set up also to tackle also specific indications. And for all of that, I think that's what's useful and in a pharma company and the pharma world is that we have access to many things. So probably I won't that will be something new also for you. But one thing that we do first is primary research or consulting when we need to have external expertise also to be sure that we have something that is at the right level, notably for our top management. We have access to many things. I think that several providers here also today to capture also this information. And lately, something that we have been using at different level is different AI and generative AI, where we can quickly, I would say, have first ideas, first sources of information, because at the end of the day, for me, it's not always reliable data that we can get through those different tools. So to be used depending on the specific question we have and to challenge also that. But for me, that's something that's really helpful also to gain time. Because basically that's help you instead of going to Google, well, you can go through a tool like this just to have a first idea of the information you are looking for. And at the end, also a lot of broker reports, because that's a really good source of information when we need to have a good understanding of what competitors also are doing. For publicly traded company, of course, because on the other side, when you are looking for specific information of private health company, it's a bit more complicated, and that's also why you need to come back to more consulting or external support. So having said that, for me, I want to share just 4 key success factors when you are working on topics on CI. First thing is the tool. So I just mentioned several things that we are using internally. Second is methodology, because whenever we have a specific questions from our top management or some strategic work we have, you need to be clear on the way to handle and tackle this question to have reliable information. Third point is the mindset, because all the people that are involved for me on a question on CI need to be in the right mindset to have external knowledge and external understanding of the competitive landscape. And the last point for me is the skills. All the people that are working on CI, and I think that's coming from a background of consulting, it's also really helpful, because I come back also to the point of methodology. You need to have the right skill when it comes to analyzing also data, defining also the specific methodology to address those questions. Because at the end, it's a matter for me of having the right people to perform also CI analysis. So if you have any question, I'm open to discuss that.
Well, great presentation, Paul from Evaluate. What sort of pain points do you see in terms of your CI workflow that, and sort of other ways to alleviate any pressure internally or burden, either from an operational point of view or the data sources that you're gathering? And I can see that you've got a wide cast of data sources, so you're getting a quite corroborated, type insights from various sources as well. So workflow and also sources.
Okay, so starting on the second one, on the sources, for me, it's quite easy. It's a matter of knowing well all the different flows of the different sources you are using, because some of them are not always updated frequently. Some are more robust also on some specific data. Taking the example, you were talking about the forecast earlier, for instance. So it's important to know and understand well how I build the consensus forecasts, to be sure that you are able to challenge also what you have. For instance, when you are making an external assessment, sometimes you have figures in Evaluate. And if you look specifically at the details of broker and the analysis that you have done externally, it's important to know basically how it's built. So for me, I would say on terms of sources, is knowing all the sources you can get access to, because I think that we have many sources and sometimes they are not, they are underused. So it's important to know, I would say, the pros and cons of all the different sources you are using to use the best one. Because sometimes there are some overlap also with some of them. And sometimes also some are, I would say, less compliant, less reliable than others also. And first point was
The first point was more of an operational,
Yeah.
if you're in the CI workflow, your
Yeah.
teams, any pain points, like in terms of whether the workload, the pressure, or internal resources are limited, and how do you look to overcome that?
I think that's on this specific topic of workflow is to be clear on who is doing what and at what level in the company. We have the luxury, I think, in Servier to have also a corporate CI level. I have one of my colleagues here, some colleagues here working on that. That's being clear on who is doing what and how you can also leverage also the different people that do CI, because at the end of the day, everybody in the company do CI at different levels. There are people dedicated to that, but at the same time, there are people taking the BD as an example. That's people that are highly connected externally. They've got a lot of critical CI information. That's why you need to work cross-functionally well to be sure that you get the information you need. And for that, you need to be clear on who is doing what, which is not always easy to do in a big company.
And sorry, I'm going to sit down after this quick question, but this that Gen AI thing,
Yeah.
how is it? Maybe you can touch upon that and how
Yes.
that's been beneficial to you and how you're building it now and what it's for. I'll sit down now.
Yes. So on generative AI, for me, as I said earlier, it depends on the question. So we have internal tools that has been developed, for instance, that we can leverage. For me, it's really on basic tasks that can be useful, like just say, okay, let's prep an email, or I want to summarize something, and so on. On the other side, for me, it's through external tools, is to quickly get access to information. And again, the point is to challenge that, because I think everybody in the room uses ChatGPT, for instance. You can ask, first of all, you need to ask a good question. So you need to have to be well educated on how to prompt. And sometimes it just provide rubbish information at the end. And especially this one, it's, in IT, they said garbage in, garbage out. So depending on the source of information you have when you use a generative AI tool, the answer could be bad if the information at the beginning is bad. And there are some tools where we plug in generative AI where we can get good information because the data, the source is good. Taking the example of a broker report, for instance, if you have different broker report and you use a generative AI tool that helps you to find the specific information you're looking for into that. But for that, you need to have the right data as an entry point, because it hallucinates or provides bad information.